Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Heart Warriors. Heart Warriors is a series I've been inspired and guided to do thanks to my energetic connection with Katajuda. Katajuda is the sacred masculine site in Central Australia, very close to Uluru, which is our beautiful sacred feminine site. What I'm here to do is to give a platform to our men so they can share their journey into the heart. Walk through their experiences, what did they learn from them, their tools, practices, insights, wisdom, knowledge, what have they picked up along their journey that they can now share with other men walking this path into the heart. And of course, us women who are walking right there beside them. Today's guest is a man from Canada, and his name is Kevin Naidoo. And he is a yoga, meditation, and spirituality teacher. And I know he's had a pretty rough journey of his own. So, looking forward to unpacking that and seeing what little treasures he has to share with us. So, enjoy the show. Hello, Kevin. Welcome to Heart Warriors. Where about in the world are you?
Hi, Gemma. I am in Vancouver Island in Canada.
Beautiful. I hear that's a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous part. It doesn't snow here very often, but we had so much snow a couple days ago. So there's so much snow on the ground here.
Oh, awesome. Well, let's start with getting to know the man you are inside. How would you
Okay.
describe that man?
The man inside, I would describe the man inside as a very overly sensitive man. But I wear that on my sleeve. I can totally own that aspect. Um, and the other thing I would say is a man that lives from his heart, a man that walks through the world seeing through the lens of love. So we don't make any judgments. So we can just walk through life, meeting everyone where they're at and not creating division.
Hmm. I love that. Well, we can open up into that subject later on in the show, but let's find out a bit about what shaped you into being the man you are today. So, can
Mhm.
we go back to your childhood and what would you say was the biggest challenge for little Kevin?
Ooh, yes. Okay, so that's a loaded one. So I I was born in South Africa. I was born in Durban, South Africa, of Indian descent family. Um, I was born I was born into a world that said there was something wrong with you because I was born under the apartheid regime.
Mm.
So I was born in a world that said, you know what, there's something wrong with you. You don't belong. You don't belong here. So that's how I came into this world with a lot of separation. Um, those that don't know, in South Africa at that time, everything was separated. Neighborhoods are separated, schools are separated, beaches are separated, grocery store, washrooms, every single thing was separated. And you can't cross that line. Everything was divided. So I grew up from that end as quote unquote a second class citizen. Um, so that was how I came into this world. So I came into this world with a struggle, but also this inner warrior inside of me. Um, this inner warrior that wants justice, this inner warrior that's not scared of standing up for himself, this inner warrior that's not scared um, to speak out against topics that are bringing injustice to people in the world. It brought out this fight inside of me, this heart warrior, so to speak.
Oh, amazing. So, what year are we talking about that this apartheid was in South Africa?
So apartheid lasted for a really long time, but it ended in 1994. Um, I was born in 1976, and it had already been I think it started in the 60s off the top of my head. So it went on for a really long time um, where Caucasian people ruled, and it was a tier system. So um, we, as Indian people, were second from the bottom, and the bottom was local African people, and then we came, and then it went into a a group called colored, which come from a Malay descent, and then into Caucasian. So it was all structured under this apartheid regime.
So how did you cope with that? Like, how did you justify that to yourself at such a young age?
You know, I that was a hard one, and I've talked to my dad a lot about that in the last year as I've been writing my book and my story, and you know, I talked to him a lot, you know, because even driving, my dad told me a few things, and it instilled a memory, and it brought back a memory. And I'll just share that memory. You know, I was with my mom and dad were in the front seat of the car, and it was me and my brother in the back seat. My sister wasn't born yet, and we were driving in a neighborhood, and there was this. We drove by a park, and this beautiful park, gorgeous park. And me and my brother were yelling and screaming, let's go to the park, let's go to the park, let's go play, let's go play, let's go play. And my dad stopped the car and explained to us that we can't go because that was a white only park. And we weren't allowed to go because of the color of our skin. And this memory came back really strong, um, into how uncomfortable that felt in my skin. I couldn't even comprehend it in my head as a 5-year-old child, 4-year-old child, saying that, you know, because of your skin color, you can't go there. When I'm watching all these other, you know, at that young age, you don't really di- differentiate color yet when you're a child. So when I'm watching all these kids in the park playing, all these Caucasian kids, I'm not seeing them as Caucasian kids, I'm just seeing them as kids. So that was a really hard thing for me to understand, to honestly to understand. I just really felt like there was something wrong with me. And I felt that way for a really long time, like there was something wrong with me. Um, almost to a place where I needed to retreat into myself because I was scared of showing up, of showing me.
Was your dad able to give you any deeper explanation other than that's a whites only park, or was that it? That was the only explanation you got?
You know, I've done enough of my own research. I'm 4 generation South African, so I know the history piece within that, within the Boer War and the Dutch and the British and the war and apartheid coming in and it creating a class system, um, where Caucasian ruled and everything came beneath that. Like I even, you know, I didn't go to school there, but my mom was a school teacher in South Africa. My brother went to school and it was all separate, you know, everything was so separate, even the neighborhoods. You had to live in an Indian neighborhood. You can't live in a mixed community. It wasn't allowed. You can't happen. There was so much violence that happened to people of color during that time. I mean, one of my cousins got burned to death in his garage as he was parking his car in his home. I know that's just one story. There's a lot more stories from my family line that has happened to me as well. And that's the reason why my mom and dad made that decision to immigrate to Canada in the early 80s because they wanted us to have opportunities and we weren't having any opportunities. There was no opportunities. They were very far and few between. And it was sneaky. It was super sneaky. And I'm just going to tell you a little story here that this is when I was super, super young, but I know this from my dad. They, the apartheid government tried to recruit my dad to be a spy on the Indian people. That's what they did to get info, to get intelligence, to get all these things. My dad caught it, knew what was going on, and he didn't do it, obviously. And soon after that, we left the country. And I have to really give it to my mom and dad because they left everything they ever known. They left their entire families, everything they've ever known to go somewhere that with nothing but 5 suitcases and 3 kids, all super young and just going. But you know, that's where I really learned what selfless love is. Because that's what I saw from my parents. It was completely selfless. It was for us. I'm getting emotional talking about this. They did that solely for us to give us an opportunity and to give us a chance at life. And if I'm being really honest with you and with myself, I'm, like I said, I've always had that warrior spirit, that standing up spirit. And if we would have stayed, I feel like I would have either been dead or in jail because I will stand up tooth and nail against injustices. I remember even telling my dad that when I was like 13 and we're in Canada, I was like, Dad, if the cops ever call and they say I'm in jail, this is why. It's a racist thing because I have no temper. I have no tolerance there. I snap. I have no control because of how I grew up.
Yeah. Let's jump now to your life in Canada. Have you
Mm.
experienced any of that racial backlash there?
Oh, have I? I even got some like 3 weeks ago here to my face. I actually had a meeting with the mayor of the town last week here because I was I was floored that this was happening in a shop by the shop owner with customers in the store and no one did anything. And I'm standing there getting horrible words, racist, horrible, deteriorating words spewed at me. Um, it's been happening here since I moved here. I remember the first racial encounter I had here in Canada. Actually, I got in a fight. I was in grade 3 and I snapped and it was calling me a racist slur to my face. And I ended up getting in trouble. The other kid didn't get in trouble. I ended up getting in trouble, of course. And that's yeah, I've had so many circumstances. My wife actually saw it for the first time. My wife is Caucasian, um, but you never seen it until about, I see it almost every day if I'm being really honest. But she saw it for the first time uh, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. We were at a bookstore and we're walking out and we're walking to the car. And this guy and his girlfriend came right up and said a racist slur to my face, and he got right in my face about it. And yeah, so it's definitely it's definitely happened, and it continues to happen. As much as Canada, you know, portrayed as the world as a multicultural country, um, there's still a lot of issues with racism, especially with the Indigenous people in this country.
Okay, so as an adult now, how do you process that? How have you come? Have you do you, can you forgive the people? Can you see it from their point that they're doing it unconsciously? How Tell us what your processing is when it happens, how you perceive the whole incident and
Mhm.
process it in your mind and heart?
So I feel the situation first. I feel the situation. I feel the environment as well, because environment, I just from my own experience influences a lot of things. Excuse me. I was bullied a lot for a lot of years once I moved to Canada. Um, for most of my schooling, to be honest. Um, so I just have to be transparent. It's not really pretty when that happens to me. I go from 0 to 100. I snap. At the same time, it's like, um, and then usually after that, I'll sit and process, and then I'll be able to let it go because these things are taught, right? These things are taught to people, and it's like it's followed through from maybe family line, maybe friends, maybe something else. Um, so I have to let it go because if I attach to that situation, I'm only causing my own suffering, right? And that's been a learning process my whole life because I used to attach to it all, but now it's like I can't attach to it. I look at it and make sure I use my voice because for so much of my life I didn't think my voice mattered and I would just sit there and take it. And now I will use my voice, um, and I'll try not to be reactive, but sometimes it'll come out reactive. And sometimes it'll come out, just as I'm talking to you, just trying to explain my position and where I'm coming from.
Let's talk to those that may be watching who still are programmed by that racist
Mhm.
program. Either
So I would.
picture the man who last attacked you or as a general.
Mhm.
What can you say to those people?
First thing I would say is we don't know anyone's story. So what gives any of us the right to judge anyone, from the color of our skin to our actions to anything? How we don't know what each other has been through. We don't know what the traumas we've been through. We don't know what the abuses we've been through. We don't know how life is turned us around like a washing machine spin cycle. Sometimes we don't know those pieces, right? And when we judge, all we are doing is creating division in this world. When we can see through love and meet people where we're at, we start to see that we're all human and color doesn't really matter. We all have eyes, we all might be a different color, but end of the day, we all breathe the same air. We all have the same life force running through us. So what's the difference if my color is different or if I talk a different way? I feel it just makes each of us unique. If we're all the same in this world, it wouldn't be very interesting, right? But we can see each other as a tapestry, right? As a beautiful, beautiful tapestry. It's like when we see it like that, it's like we don't need to travel overseas. We don't need to travel everywhere. We can just walk down the street and connect to so many people from so many different cultures and ethnicities and ask the questions that we want to connect to about those places.
Beautiful. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you, Kevin. Now, can you speak a message to others that may be watching that, maybe aren't quite as able to process it emotionally and are being attacked racially? What can you say to help them?
Mm-hmm. I would say first off, I would say be really gentle with yourself. Um, nurture yourself, be soft with yourself. Sometimes we have a tendency to beat ourselves up, but when we get attacked, especially, on a racial end, it sometimes makes us feel small. It makes us feel like we're 2 feet small. It makes us feel like we're cut down. And in those moments, we have a tendency as humans to 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 speak really horrible words to ourselves, to have self-defeating thoughts running through our brain, to all those things, right? I would say to all those people that you know who you are. Don't let anyone dictate who you are. You know, in the very essence of how you came into this world, the very essence of how you choose to live in this world, how you choose to walk through this world, you have a choice. You have a choice in that space. We can react and give them all the power, or we can process, hone in, and strengthen our conviction and power within our own temple we reside in.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mhm.
How have you justified to yourself why you were born into this life and this skin and this circumstance? Have you done, being a spiritual teacher? What conclusion did you come to?
I feel like I came into this world to liberate my family, to liberate my family line. There's a lady right there, and if you can see her. This is my great great grandmother. She was a slave. She got taken from India, put on a slave boat, and taken to South Africa and worked the sugarcane plantations for 25 years. She was 6'5", bullering in her nose, an Indian lady I know. And she was fierce. She was fierce, fierce grace of who she is. So I feel like I came in, I'm the overspoken one in my family. I speak to the things that no one else wants to speak to. I stand up for the injustices that no one else wants to do. I put myself out there when it's scary to put yourself out there with all these things. So I feel like, to answer that question, I feel like I came here to liberate my family line. And it's interesting because I tattooed that in my chest at the start of my spiritual path, and it's in my mom's native tongue. Um, but that's what I feel like. I honestly really feel like I am. Even my dad has said that to me. I'm very different than everyone in my family. I am the middle child, and I'm very much the middle child.
So, do you believe that you chose this incarnation
Yes,
for
100%.
this
I
purpose?
100%. I feel like I chose to come here. I chose to come in at this point of this world. It's why I'm here. With all this going on in this world right now, and the last 2 years of everything going on, I 100%. That was like the last 2 years really showed me that yes, I 100% chose to be here right now.
Do you see yourself as a victim?
Do I see myself as a victim? If I'm answering that right now in this moment, no. But I used to. I used to play that role. The early stages of my spiritual path, I used to lead with my ego. I used to spiritually bypass. I used to play the victim. I used to do all these things. Um, and if I'm being transparent, I'm grateful for my wife, because my wife called me on that. She called me on that victim piece, and it was hard to hear. I'm not going to lie. I definitely got triggered, but I was so happy she called me on it. This is a while back. Um, and once I started to sit with it and recognize those moments, I was able to transmute it. And I don't go, I don't speak or live from that place anymore.
Now, this is amazing. And I always think this is a key point in anyone's healing journey to transmute that victimhood, because it puts us in a whole new state of, inner power. And I think that is, the line that you need to, the hurdle you need to get over. So, can you describe the difference in your being from when you saw yourself as a victim to now not seeing yourself as a victim?
Mhm. Okay, I'm going to use an example, a really um, new example. It's from yesterday, but I feel free. That's the answer I'm going to give, is free. I feel so freaking free. So I've been sitting with something for several years, um, and I felt a lot of shame around it, and it's been taking a little bit of peace for me every single day for several years. At some point in the day, it always takes a bit of me. And a few weeks ago, I finally wrote it all out. And the last few weeks, I've been gathering my strength to post it and to speak to it and to free myself, because I needed to do that for me. So I did it. I did it yesterday. I put it out there. I'm not going to lie, feeling really raw and vulnerable yesterday. But a few people messaged me and they asked me, "How are you feeling?" And all I can say was, "I'm feeling free. I'm feeling freedom. I'm feeling free in my skin, in my bones, in my emotional feeling center. I'm feeling free as Kevin, just to be Kevin."
This is amazing, because I know I do the same thing through my writing, but it is freedom to be our authentic selves, right? Can you speak any more into this sense of freedom, because this is so important, and how does it connect to being transparent and being our authentic selves? How does that bring us freedom?
I think one piece is it gives other people permission to honor their truth. And really, we're all a collective here, and we're supporting each other's greatness every single day. And by us writing and putting things out there, we're also stating to our own selves that, you know what, our voice does matter. That person did not silence me. My voice matters. He might have silenced me, but I am using my voice right now in a really direct, loving, conscious way. Um, it's a sense of liberation to go from that victim place into this freedom place. Um, I always say it's like, there's we all have shadows. I do a lot of work with shadow work, and looking at those pieces inside of us that we don't want to look at, that generate shame, blame, and denial. But when we can actually sit in a safe space and give voice to it, that's when we start to transmute poisons into nectar. That's when we start to change it from shadow into light, right? That's when we start to realize that, you know what, your voice matters in this world. And we start to get strength, empowerment, courage, passion, conviction into who we are.
What can you say to those men who are still in this victim energy? Maybe they see themselves as a victim of a divorce or bad
Mm-hmm.
parenting or of alcohol or of sexual abuse, whatever it is. And as we've said, we both agreed it's a really important hurdle to surpass on anyone's healing journey. Can you please speak to those
Mm-hmm.
men, Kevin?
Yes. So, to speak to the men, as a whole, first thing I want to say is the roles have really shifted and changed over the last few years. It's really been inspiring to see all the amazing women standing up, using their voice, standing up for themselves, and coming into this place. But within that, the roles have changed, right? The men have come to a place where they don't know if they're provider or protector anymore, like the world showed us our whole life. And the roles are changed. There's a lot of separations, a lot of divorces, a lot of um, uh, separations from partners, all those things, because there's this influx within what do we do? How do I, what's my role in this relationship now? Second thing I would say is, at least from my experience, my own well, and the men that I work with, a lot of us are disconnected from feeling. That was me. I was disconnected. I could feel this, my physical body that the world shows us. I could feel pain, but going inside into the emotional body, into sadness, into fear, into crying, into vulnerability, into anger, all those pieces, there was a huge disconnect. And I feel there's a lot of that with men. There's a disconnect from that emotional place, and we live from this external place. So, to speak to the men, I would say tap into your emotional body. Give yourself permission to sit with yourself. I know it's uncomfortable. I remember the moment I had to find comfortability within incomfortability to really start to feel into myself beyond this layer of skin and bones, to drop into the subtle body, to drop into our sacral chakra, our feeling center. And that's when we're going to start to be able to look at the traumas that have happened in our life, at any abuse that happened in our life, but we'll be able to look at it and feel it from a compassionate place. But it all starts with us. We have to be willing to acknowledge, um, and to give ourselves the time and the space and the love. Now, that's a loaded question, the love. We use that word as men all the time during the day. But when we say it back to ourselves, we tend to run away. We tend to run away, right? But speaking to the men, how can we love ourselves? How can we love our partners, our kids, our family, all of it, if we don't love ourselves? It doesn't work. Everything's got to start with you. So notice how it feels for you to tell yourself that you love yourself. If you've never done it before, it's probably going to be uncomfortable. For me, I couldn't even get the words out the first time. It was like quivering lips trying to get the words out. It took me about a week before I got the full sentence out of my mouth. But that was years ago, and I say those words every single day of my life. It's like my mantra, because I forgot about that most of my life. So be gentle, be compassionate, and allow yourself to nurture yourself. And if you don't know what that feels like or what that even is, try and see what that is. Give yourself a bath, sit with yourself, lie down, put your hand in your belly, your hand in your heart. Give yourself a loving touch. Loving touch is such a huge thing for men, just for us to just give a loving touch and hold ourselves and feel our loving embrace and receive our loving embrace. It'll tap us inward so we can connect emotionally and we can express ourselves fully and completely as we grow.
Beautiful. Kevin, I'd like to expand on how a man can get in touch with himself emotionally, as you said was so important. So you touched on a few things there, but let's expand and get deeper. So a man's watching this and he's like, okay, I'm can acknowledge that I'm not in touch with myself emotionally. Can you please give him some practical tools, practices, ways he can do that?
So, yeah, so first thing I'm going to say is we have to have awareness. First thing is we have to have awareness. So recognize if you're getting angry, recognize when you're getting sad, recognize when you're getting vulnerable, recognize all those pieces. Once you have the awareness of when these are happening, notice. No tendency, if we've never done this, we're just going to push it aside and charge forward and keep on going. That's our tendency as men. We just keep on going, right? But when we have awareness, that's our catch. Sit with it, listen to it, be with that emotion instead of running away from it. If it's anger, where's that anger coming from? Where's it rooting from? It might not be in this present moment. It might be from childhood. It might even be from a past life that this anger is rooting into. Sadness, where's this sadness coming? Where does it correlate to in your life? Why are you feeling sad? Did someone pass away? Are you grieving an aspect of yourself? This is where we start to get introspective. We start to ask ourselves these questions. This is when we start to do that, it's drawing us deeper and deeper and deeper inside so we can feel. But we have to recognize the emotion first and be willing to go into it. So have the awareness, feel into it. If it's uncomfortable, go deeper. Don't run away, but just go back every day. It's like a mirror practice to cultivate self-love. We go in front of a mirror every day and we say, I love you to yourself. The first day I did that, I couldn't get the words out. After 7 days, I got the words out. And I say that every single day now. That's another way. A mirror practice. Cultivate that love. Go into the bathroom as soon as you wake up. Look at yourself. But really look at yourself. Look at your eyes. Look at your face. Look at your lines in your face. Look at your whole self. And tell yourself intentionally, I love you. Not as a joke, because we're good at that. The ego is good as a bit of a trickster. Not as a joke, not as a just a whatever, and I'm out the door and going through my day. You just stand there and notice if you can receive your love. And if you can't, notice why. Notice where the resistance is coming from. Our body is so amazing. It shows us where that resistance sits in our physical body, right? But all of this, it all has to start with awareness. Because if we have no awareness, we are just going to continue to run through life on autopilot. I think everything starts with awareness.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of men, of course, women as well, but seeing this is about men, turn to numbing substances, whether it be alcohol, pornography, cannabis, whatever, you know. Did you deal with any of that on your path? And do you still use any of those today? And what would you say to men who it's just easier to turn to some numbing substance rather than feel that emotional pain or uncomfortability inside?
Right. Yes, I was a pro at this. I was an addict on every substance you can possibly imagine for about 20 years. It started when I was 14. And this all started because of my self-worth struggles and bullying. And I was just trying to fit in, just trying to fit in. I was trying to find friends. And I fell into just that. And it started with alcohol. It moved to cigarettes. It moved into drugs. It moved into heavy drugs. And it moved into a really dark place. When I was 24, I tried to take myself out very consciously because things were getting too dark and I was living and creating my own hell. Um, and I was tired, and I bought a handful of pills, and it was in a club in Europe, and I knew exactly what I was doing, and I swallowed all the pills. Um, and I still honestly don't know what happened after that. All I remember was waking up on the floor 3 days later. I had no idea what happened. Um, so yes, I use any type of emotion, any type of feeling, any type of uncomfortability. I would reach for a substance. I would reach for something because I was scared. I was scared. I was scared of what I was going to see. I was scared of what I was going to feel. I was scared. Um, I was scared of looking inside. I was super scared. And it was easier for me just to start numbing things out and running away from these things because that's what I did with loving myself. I ran away from it um, my whole life. So I was already used to it. And this just came part in turn. Um, and yoga is the literally, I know this is almost a catchphrase these days, but yoga did save my life in so many ways. It gave me an opportunity to feel for the first time. Um, so so for those men that are using it, and I know sometimes we use these things for our own safety. And I say, why am I saying that? Because some of us have been through hell and back with abuse and trauma, hell and back, and it can be really scary. It can be really scary to look at those pieces, to acknowledge those pieces, and to feel those pieces. So I get it. I understand how it's way easier to just numb things out. So what I would say is, in those moments, we always have to get the emotion out. Every single time we gulp it up and we stack it inside, it's restricting our chakra line. It's restricting breath moving through. It's going to eventually cause an injury or an illness. The body will always manifest in that way when you're not looking at everything. So I would say to all the men, give yourself a space, a room just for you in your house, even if it's a closet that's just for you, so that you can retreat to when things come up and voice it without worrying about your partner hearing you, without your kids hearing you, without anyone hearing you. But you can just voice it and give yourself permission in that space, because you are not just voicing it for you, you're also voicing it for your inner child, your adolescent self, your whole way through. Give yourself that permission. Um, Something my wife and I do, especially when anger comes up and we need to scream, because that's a huge block if we stack it down, is we hand each other the car keys, and I'll go for a drive and I'll scream it out in the car. I'll get it out of my bones, out of my lungs, out of my field. But my whole life I just stacked it, because that's what I was taught. But now it's like, no, we need to honor it, express it. And I know it can be uncomfortable to, especially to get vulnerable, especially to cry as men. But remember, brothers, your tears are beautiful. And crying is the highest devotional song. Those that know crying know spiritual practice, right? Feel into it, honor yourself with it, and know when you're crying, you're washing it all away.
love it. Thank you, Kevin.
Mhm.
Um, that piece that you spoke about where you tried to take yourself out, as you put it, there's
Mhm.
a lot of men also considering that. So, have you got a message to those men, please?
Yes. Mm. You matter. You're loved, you're beautiful, and you're worthy of you just being you. I know life is hard, and I know some of us have been through the ringer, and I know some of us have felt like we've lived enough lives and it can get exhausting. And in that place of exhaustion, we can come to that place of just being not wanting to be here and wanting to just check out. But you deserve to be here just as much as anyone else does on this planet. And you're loved just like everyone on this planet. If you can see it, if you can receive it, or if you can't, I'm saying from my heart, I see each of you, brothers, and I love you unconditionally for all that you are and all that you choose to be. Be gentle with yourself, honor yourself, talk to a friend. Don't hide it out. Give voice to in a safe space, someone that can hold space, someone that's not going to try to fix, but someone just that's going to sit and listen and hold space. Share it with someone that you know. When we can do that and we can open ourselves up to receive it, that's when we'll start to open up that expression of loving acceptance. And we start to open up that place of knowing that we are worthy of just being us and no other reason. It's okay if you don't have all the answers. It's okay if you're not where you thought you'd be by now. It's not a race. And I just want to share a quote to you, brothers. This is from a book called Siddhartha, the story of Buddha. We are not going in circles. We are going upwards. The path is a spiral. We have already climbed many steps. So look at your journey. I know it can be scary to look at our journey because I used to be scared because it was filled with mistakes. But once I was able to transmute that word mistake into teacher, then I started to see every right turn that should have been a left, every left turn that should have been a right was a teacher. And I had to go through it to get me into this moment, into this place, into this expression right here, right now. We're, think about how many times you've been knocked down. But now think about how many times you picked yourself up. You did it, no one else. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Receive it. Remember how strong you are. Remember how courageous you are. And remember the power that lives inside of you is your birthright.
Amazing. I love how you said, to change mistake into teacher. And that's often it, isn't it? Just really, we're so programmed with words like mistake and failure and
Yeah.
but we can change that into teachers and challenges and opportunities, to choose
Yes.
love and, for higher growth. Just changing our how we perceive language is massive, even just around a few words, especially ones that are
Absolutely.
holding us down.
Yeah, totally. Totally. It's like I always, when I teach yoga, I talk about self-defeating thoughts and things in class. So when I'm guiding, I always tell them, flip the script. If you're saying self-defeating thought, flip it to I love myself, to I'm beautiful, to I'm worthy. Because it's amazing when we say nice things to ourselves, our body responds right away. Not just our physical, but our emotional body too. The walls start to come down and we start to come back home.
Let's talk about yoga. I mean, I'm a yogi too, so I love this topic. And again, one of the, I would say, the greatest tools beside my writing that, helped me on my spiritual path. So, talk to men about yoga, because a lot of men have got this concept of, oh, can't do yoga, or that's for women, or I'm not flexible, or blah, 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 blah. Talk to men about yoga, please.
So yoga is the one thing that got me connected into my feeling center, like fully and completely. I'm going to be really transparent with you, brothers. I My body was broken when I started yoga. I just came out of being an addict. I couldn't even touch my knees. My back was locked. Everything was locked. It was broken. I was leading with my ego in every class, trying to my head on a swing, trying to do everything everyone else is doing. My body couldn't handle it. There's a few face plants, a few falling over, and and all those kind of pieces, right? But yoga's union, brothers. It's union. It's union of body, mind, and spirit. For you to just come in that space and bring this fusion so we can not be disconnected, but we can come home. I know that's a cliche term, but I like that term. We can come home before anything got in the way, before any responsibilities happened. And for that 1 hour, you can make it all about you. Think about how many things in your whole day that you make about you fully and completely. Not a lot of people make that time, but an hour just for you. And to speak to my brothers, the whole yoga world is becoming pretty balanced between men and women. I wouldn't say it's more women than men anymore. I would say it's pretty much a 50-50. And it's really beautiful to see. So I say that to the men so you can know that you don't have to feel intimidated walking into that room, right? And don't worry what anyone else is doing. Remember, if there's 30 people in that room, we all have different bodies, right? So meet yourself where you're at. Remember, I couldn't touch my knees. Sitting cross-legged, my knees were like up here when I started. I couldn't do that, right? But there's a starting point. I just worked with a private client online in Hawaii this afternoon, and he has 2 hip replacements, 2 broken femurs that he's recovering from. And he felt so empowered after his yoga class, right? Because even with all these injuries, when we actually stop and send our breath into our body, I will promise you, it'll feel vibrantly healthy. Give yourself a chance, one class, to just see how it feels without making your preconception ideas about it, right? Because those are just assumptions. And when we assume, we create our own suffering. When we can just give ourselves an opportunity, we can have the experience without getting in our own way.
So good. What type of yoga do you do, Kevin? Or do you do teach?
So I'm certified in every single style. I take a teacher training for my own self every year. Um, so yeah, I'm certified in everything. I predominantly teach vinyasa and hatha and yin. I love teaching like slow hatha, building strength from the ground up and just keeping everyone together. Um, I love teaching a non-dogmatic Ashtanga practice that's not rigid, but way more open and expansive. Yeah, I teach a lot of different things. And um, one other thing I just want to say to the men on the yoga piece, remember your body is going to feel different every single day. And this is how I view my practice. Let go of all attachment to your practice. Some days my practice is 5 minutes. Some days my practice is 90 minutes. Some days my practice is meditation. Some days it's just doing mudras, hand energetic seals. So forget about what it looks like, but just if you honor you with what you need each day, then it'll allow you to come back deeper and deeper inside.
With
Then we don't take out, then we don't attach. I used to force the 90-minute clap practice every single day until I started to notice I was creating my own suffering with it.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful.
Mm.
With so many different variations of yoga, and where would you suggest a man start?
Mm, totally. So I would say two things actually. I would say hatha, because hatha is strength building, and it's posture to posture. So you're not running through a flow and a sequence. So to understand in a brand new class, you'll be able to stay with everyone. You won't feel like you're disconnected from the room. Hatha is a great one. If you're working if you're super tight as a man in a man's body, or you have a plethora of injuries as well, I would also say yin. Yin is such a restorative practice. And the reason I say yin is it has this tendency to take us inward into the subtle body, into the feeling center, because we are staying. We learn how to stay in a pose and quiet and shut this down. I like to use mantra when I teach yin to keep this at bay um, as well. So, and yin, when we work with injuries, we can set ourselves up with all these props to support us if we if we injured our meniscus on our knee, or we have a low back injury or a trap injury or something, we can prop ourselves up and be fully supported. Those two practices, I would say, are super beneficial to start.
So good. Kevin, we've got about half an hour left, and I really want to maximize your wisdom and knowledge and experience. So, where would you like to take this conversation?
So let us go into me losing my eyes. So 4.5 years ago, I woke up one morning and I went to the bathroom and I was washing my face like I always do. I was washing my face. And for whatever reason that day, this hand came down, this hand stayed up. I opened my left eye and there was nothing there. It was black. I took my right eye off and there was nothing there except for a little ray of light off my peripheral. Um, I didn't know what was going on. I reacted right away. I never noticed anything until that moment. So I went to an optometrist, who then sent me to a specialist right away. And this specialist said, best specialist in the country too, he said, "This is your life. There's no options for you. You have open angular glaucoma and you have lost your vision completely." Mm. I walked out of that doctor's office, and it was at a time where I used to own my own studio, and it was about 3 blocks away from the doctor's office. And I walked out of the doctor's office. I got to the crosswalk, and that's when it got real. I realized I can't even see the crosswalk sign, and I had to ask someone beside me to hold my hand and walk me across the street. Um, I got to the studio. I did something really dumb, but again, I was in a reaction space. I jumped in my car. I drove to my house. I don't know how, my angels had me. I grabbed my passport. I went to the airport. I'm like, fuck it, I'm out of here. I just didn't want to deal with anything. And I'd been running my whole life, and it was way easier than sitting with it. I sat there for an hour in front of the airport contemplating what to do. And I finally made the decision that an option is an option, that I have to try and take this option and see if there is an option. So I decided to stay. I went home. I told my family, and I just continued the best that I could over the next few days. And about a week later, my dad started sending me emails like every single day, like 3, 4 emails every single day. Because my mom and dad are the type of people that don't take no for an answer. Doctor says no, they're going to find a way. And they brought to me a stem cell option, and I reacted right away because I didn't know anything about it. I was still in a reaction mode, and I just pushed them away. But my beautiful mom and dad, they kept on sending me info every day to read up on it. And it just got to a point that, you know what, an option's an option, so I'm going to take it. Um, so I told them that we're going to do it. And the next piece of the puzzle was, okay, I need to find this money. It was $30,000, and I didn't have that. And my wife knowing that I'm a giver and I struggle to receive, she started a GoFundMe page without me knowing. I got really mad, but she started it, and the yoga community raised $30,000 in 3 weeks for me. I went public with my story uh, on the news, on some podcasts and things, and I did that not for the GoFundMe, but I did it just to show people that there's always options. Don't always think what your doctor is saying is the all truth. Do your research. But within me going public, before I left, I got hate mail. My wife got hate mail. My mom and dad got hate mail. I got called out on Facebook by yoga teachers all over the place. Why? Because all these people are under this false impression that stem cells come from a dead fetus, which is completely false. And it's, and all these people came at me and attacked me all over the place. I know where my stem cell came from a healthy baby boy from Brazil, from this beautiful lady that matched me. That was a lot to take, to feel all that hate coming out, especially from yoga teachers. That just floored me. But it is what it is. That's when I started to let go of attachment. So I don't attach to what they're saying. I'm just going to do my thing, because at the end of the day, they're not sitting in my position. I'm only sitting in my position. So about a week and a half later, we left. And the night before I left, I proposed to my wife. And she said yes, not knowing if I'd ever be able to see again. Me, my mom, and dad went to Thailand for a 27-day treatment. I had 6 stem cell injections, 2 by intravenous, 2 spinal taps with a 6-inch needle, and 2 right in the crease of the eye into the brain. Now, here's the power of yoga. I refused and made a big stink in the hospital because I did not want them to put me under. I did not want any numbing cream. I wanted to feel the 6-inch needle go in my spine. I wanted to feel the needle go in my eye. I didn't want nothing. After half hour, 45 minutes, I talked them into it. I gave them my phone with my mantras. They patched the mantras into the operating room and they started chanting. And if I'm being really honest, I barely felt a thing. That's the power of yoga and the power of our mind. Barely felt a thing. I also had a lot of occupational therapy during that time. I had a dietitian working with me for foods to support my eye health. I was put in an oxygen chamber sealed completely for an hour every second day to raise my field and my vibration. I was doing exercises to strengthen each eye every single day. There was so many pieces to this. And at about day 21, I was doing occupational therapy. I had a bandage on one eye and one eye open. And it was like kids' games. You had to put shapes in certain shape sizes and puzzles and all these things. And it was sitting there doing it just like we did every day. And all of a sudden, a ray of light started coming through my black eye, through my left eye, which my optic nerve was gone. It didn't even exist. The pressure had dissipated my optic nerve. So a light coming through, I was like, I thought it was a joke. I was like, is this real? What is even going on here? But that was the start of me getting my eyes back at day 21. And over the next 4 to 6 months, more light started to come in and come in and come in and come in. And now I'm at 2025. No glasses, no contacts, no nothing. And every single day is a gift. Now I look at this and me going blind is one of the greatest gifts I've ever had in my life. And why? Because it made me look at all the shit that I didn't want to look at. I didn't have a choice. Bandages on both eyes, I had to go inside. I had to look at all these pieces that I didn't look at, that I really needed to, so I can get here in this space, so I can talk to you from this clear well. So that's where after I processed my whole piece, that's where I came to. I was like, this really was the greatest gift. And I almost feel like this came through from me from birth, or maybe from a past life or something, but there was such a huge liberator here within this experience for me just being me and freeing Kevin fully and completely. And when I came home, I had to do something. I really had to do something because there's so much division in the yoga world. So I created a yoga TV show for visually impaired viewers. So regardless of mobility, regardless of eyes, regardless of hearing, regardless of injury, everybody can have some yoga. It got picked up by a network, and it ran for 4 years, almost 100 episodes that we put out all over the world. And I just feel really proud of it and grateful. I got a lot of messages from people in jail watching that show, men in jail watching that show, that thank me for allowing them to go inside for the first time, allowing them to feel for the first time, um, from their cell. And I feel super grateful. I'm going to be really honest here though, and not a lot of people know this, but I've done my work with it and I can voice it. Um, last, yeah, just about a year ago, not even, yeah, just about a year ago, I got fired from this TV network. Can you guess why? Pandemic, everything else going on. Um, so yes, I got fired for partly that. And here's the kicker, which just floored me, but also showed me that I'm not in alignment with these people. I do a lot of work and create marches and events and all these things around the country for to bring awareness to child abuse and child trafficking. And I bring a lot of awareness on my platforms and speak to this. And the president of the TV network emailed me and he said, "You're lying. None of that exists." And I was like, wow, none of it exists. How small of a world do you live in? And he fired me. But it's okay. It just showed me I'm not in alignment, right? And I stepped away and continued to do my thing and spreading love to the world. I know there's a lot there.
You're muted. Sorry, occasionally my dog wants to go off and bark at.
Oh yeah, all good.
Um, so is that TV series still accessible if someone wanted to?
Yes, you can see it online. Um, so I'll tell you, and I'll send you a link as well,
Yeah, we'll
Jen.
put it below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's under the TV network is AMI, AMI.ca. And if you just type my name in on their website, every single episode I did is on there.
All right. And is that free to the public?
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, we'll
Say
definitely
that one more.
those links.
Sorry. Say that one more time.
Is that free to the public?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is free. Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, and they can all watch it. And every show, I did it as a theme. So one show will be shadow work, one show will be inner child work, one show will be anxiety, one show will be emotional connection. You know, everything has a theme all the way through.
So good, Kevin. Well, thanks for sharing that story. And that's such a great resource that, men can use from home. So
Yeah.
let's talk about meditation.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into that? And is it a necessary piece, or is there lots of different types of meditative states that men can access?
Yeah, I got into meditation for the first time. My first training actually was in India. I stayed in an ashram for 37 days, 14 hours a day of training for 37 days. And I remember that first meditation class because it was an hour, and it, my back was so sore, because in India, you're not allowed to sit against a wall. You're not allowed to sit against a pillar. You have to sit in an open space and you have to build your back strength. And I was in my head the whole time, in this back pain the whole time. And the teacher told me, and I say this to myself almost every day, you have to find comfortability in incomfortability. It's like a replay in my head. Meditation is such a beautiful thing. I love using meditation with mantra because mantra is a protector of the mind. It shuts down the mind. It keeps away the self-defeating thoughts. It keeps away all of it. And it also keeps you within breath awareness. So to the men out there, I would say, don't worry about what it looks like, for you to meditate. Don't worry that you don't have to sit cross-legged. And I know a lot of us, especially guys, our hips are super tight. Just find comfort. Maybe you're sitting with your back up against a wall with your legs fully extended. Maybe you're sitting on the couch or on the chair. It doesn't really matter. The most important thing is just be comfortable, because if you're comfortable, the mind will quiet down. Once you're there, if mantra doesn't resonate, that's okay. We can just work with our breath, just with the breath, with a slightly audible breath. We observe the inhale, the exhale. We observe how every inhale is supported by the exhale, how every exhale is supported by the inhale. Then it starts to be this fluidity. It starts to be this dance. Meditation works so much with repetition and mantra and breath. It just strips it all back and just into this space. My favorite way to meditate, because I feel like this way really lands. It lands to a place where it imprints into your cellular DNA. So I love using mantras. So again, if you don't want to use like a Sanskrit mantra, you can just use an affirmation. Same thing. I am love. You just say that, I am love. But how I like to do it is, let's use that for right now for an example. I am love. For the first minute, you're going to say it verbally out loud. I am love. I am love. Second minute, you're going to whisper it. Third minute, you're going to silence it, take it inside. Fourth minute, back to whisper. Fifth minute, back to voice. When you do it that way, it has an opportunity to land. Now, again, you don't have to do minute. If you're starting, 30 seconds. 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever works for you. But the methodology is that vocal whisper silent. It'll land that way.
That's a good one. Is there anything else that is needs to be brought up in this conversation that we haven't touched on, Kevin?
I would just honestly, I just like to say to all the men out there that it's our time right now. It's our time to really compassionately drop into heart space, because we can still be strong, courageous, and powerful living in our heart. Just like this podcast, Heart Warrior, right? Being in your heart doesn't mean you're soft, doesn't mean you're small, doesn't mean you're weak, doesn't mean, let all those fragments fall away and come into your heart and find your strength within your heart. There's a teaching from yoga, from the goddess, and I live and breathe this teaching. The power of love will always defeat the love of power. When we can live in that heart space, nothing can touch us. When we can live in the heart space, there's no judgments. All division falls away. When we can live in this heart space, we can see who we are before any of the world and responsibilities got in the way. And to the men out there, take a moment. We get so caught up with these outer identifications and we attach to them. And it prevents us from knowing who we are. So take a moment and strip it all back. Who are you without your job, without your title, without your wife, your partner? Who are you without your kids, your vehicle, your house? Who are you beyond all of those things? Because it's super easy to attach to these outer identifications. So many of us do. I used to all the time. But once we strip it all back, that's how we start to come home. That's how we start to find our authentic self. That's how we start to feel into the essence of who we are and why we came into this world. And within that, we start to see our purpose in this life.
Beautiful, beautiful message for men. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
So they can find me, and anything I do is on my website. It's kevinnaidooyoga.com. They can find me on Instagram at Kevin Naidoo Yoga. They can find me on Facebook at Kevin Naidoo. You can find me, if you're in Canada on Vancouver Island, you can find me at a few different studios around. Yoga Grace and Modo Nanaimo, just to name a couple. And I also work, most of the work I do is I work one-on-one with people around the world. And my one-on-one sessions are not just from a physicality, but we bring in all of it. We bring in every piece of it. I call it spiritual coaching, to really guide you into the greatest and biggest expression of who you are.
And the title you chose for this show is Fierce Grace. What does that mean to you?
Fierce grace. So I feel like that's me. I feel like that's my life. I feel like I found this fire, this passion, this drive inside of me to stand up against injustices, to stand up for myself. But I'm also a bit of a crybaby. You know, I probably cry every single day and I own those tears. I feel like, you know, my whole life, I was always called the sensitive one from a negative place, but now I see it as my superpower. My sensitivity, that's my superpower. And I fully embrace it 100%.
So good.
And like I said, my whole family line, Fierce Grace is what they used to call her.
Wow.
As well. And then third thing, my new book that's coming out next year is called Fierce Grace, a transformational journey back to self. And it's my whole story from being born in South Africa to right now.
Amazing. What a great episode. Thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing yourself and your heart with us. Very much appreciated. I'll drop all the links below.
Thank you. I just want to say, you hold such incredible space. I can feel it. I can receive it. So thank you from my heart of hearts. Thank you. Thank you for holding space. Thank you for inviting me on this. Thank you for creating this beautiful, intentional, conscious podcast to help so many people.
My pleasure. I think we can thank Kata Judah for that because it was never my idea. So, I'll be the middle woman.
Mhm.
All right, Kevin. Well, thank you once again. And thanks everyone for watching. And please like, share, subscribe. And I'll be back in another few days with another episode of Heart Warriors. Bye.
Bye.
Stay on if you like.